In his best-selling book, The Telling Room, Michael Paterniti shares a story that he heard when visiting his father's ancestral village in Sicily. Every day while he was in the village, he saw a very old woman walking with her cane, struggling up a steep road to get to the local cemetery. It was said that at her tortoise pace, that the walk from her home to the cemetery and back took about 6 hours out of each of her day. So what grief inspired her difficult daily walk? Was she driven by sorrow over a departed child or a deceased husband, the love of her life? No, the locals told Paterniti that she was driven by astio, bitter hatred. You see, her arch enemy was buried in that cemetery. So rain or shine, the old woman walked up the hill every day to her enemy's gravesite just to spit on it one more time. An author once said, of the 7 deadly sins, anger is possibly the most fun. To lick your wounds, to smack your lips over grievances long past, to roll over your tongue the prospect of bitter confrontation still to come, to savor to the last toothsome morsel both the pain you are given and the pain you are giving back. In many ways, it's a feast fit for a king. The chief drawback is that what you are wolfing down is yourself. The skeleton at the feast is you. In the gospel this weekend, Simon invites Jesus to dinner, and Jesus takes the opportunity to teach Simon a lesson. A sinful woman interrupts them at the meal, and most people, especially the Pharisees, would have angrily thrown her out. But Jesus shows understanding, compassion, forgiveness, not anger or rage. That's one of the great lessons of the gospel this weekend. Now, anger is a normal human emotion that we all experience probably every day. The challenge is for each one of us is to acknowledge it, to make choices about it, and at some point struggle to let it go and to forgive. But unfortunately, in our culture and society today, there seems to be little forgiveness, little understanding, little compassion when others make mistakes. There's little letting go of this obsession with anger which seems to be overwhelming our culture. According to a new USA Today study, the share of Americans who report feeling angry or irritable has surged from 50% just 2 years ago to 60% today. And the study says that we're not only angry, but we're also afraid of one another. For 4 decades, reports the Associated Press, a gut-level ingredient of democracy, trust in the other fellow, has been quietly draining away. These days, only 1/3 of Americans say most people can be trusted. Half felt that in 1972. And the AP article concludes, 40 years later, a record high of nearly 2/3 say, you can't be too careful in dealing with people. Is it that we look around today and we see people as the enemy, especially if they are somewhat different from what we look like or act like or different from what we believe in? Jesus in the gospel made no such judgments on that sinful woman. He saw into her heart. He allowed her to be who she was. That's a very strong message for you and me, a very strong message for our country, our world today. In a 2007 article entitled All the Rage, Andrew Santella observes that anger is a prominent emotion in American life, that our politics are dominated by angry rhetoric, that cases of road rage are increasingly common, and the shelves of local bookstores are full of books explaining both the benefits and the dangers of anger. In fact, many books on the shelves today are simply called wrath literature, published written rants on various topics. And Peter Wood, in a book called A Bee in the Mouth, writes that a sure sign of America's problem with anger is the tone of our politics. For the first time in our political history, declaring absolute hatred for one's opponent has become a sign not of sad excess, but of good character. Now, as prevalent as it is, anger is still very mysterious. It can be either one's greatest liability or one's greatest asset. Carol Travis, an expert on anger, who wrote The Misunderstood Emotion, explains it. She says, I have watched people use anger in the name of emotional liberation to erode affection and trust, whittle away their spirits in bitterness and revenge, diminish their dignity in years of spiteful hatred, and I watch with admiration those who use anger to probe for truth, who challenge and change the complacent injustices of life. Now, one of my all-time favorite pieces of literature, Herman Melville's Moby Dick, really helps us in this gospel this weekend. Because that story, if you know it, tells the story of revenge and obsession. Captain Ahab, a whaler, loses a leg to a white whale. A smoldering anger begins to grow in the one-legged captain. Captain Ahab's anger grows into a fixation on revenge against the sea monster. And as his lust and hatred grow, so does his lack of wisdom. So on his next whaling hunting trip, the driving force in his soul begins to erode his good judgment, putting the man and the crew and his ship in insanely hazardous situations. Common sense is overruled by his wild passion for killing the white whale. All else is secondary. And as the captain hurls the men and the ship into perilous seas of hate, finally his opportunity to take vengeance arrives. The white whale is within his grasp. He chases him for 3 days, and the crew members realize that Ahab's folly may mean doom to them, not for the whale, but for them. And then Starbuck comes into the picture, his first mate, the only one who dares to question the captain, and he cries out, "Oh, Ahab, not too late, is it? Even now, the 3rd day to desist. See, Moby Dick seeks you not. It is you that madly seek him." But it's too late. Ahab's desire for revenge grows deeper. He ignores every danger, and in the end, the ship is lost. And the crew, save one, is lost. Ahab loses both his quest and his life. The whale triumphs. Moby Dick illustrates the dark path down which hatred can lead us. A very old woman is caught up in osteo, bitter hatred, spends her life obsessed with anger. It gets her nowhere. Today, our country seems to be caught up in obsessive anger. Let us pray that we can use the anger which is normal to probe for truth and not allow it to destroy us, but to help us to challenge and change the complacent injustices that we see all around us.